Welcome back. In this module, we'll discuss the first plane of the user experience design process, the strategy plane. Strategy is an important part of any project. And in user experience design, strategy is imperative to understanding the fundamental idea of why we're doing what we're doing. UX strategy is no different. We need to understand all aspects of our project before we get going. In the case of UX strategy, however, we're looking at the juxtaposition of user needs and product objectives. Let's talk a little bit about that. To understand the user-centric design process, we need to assess what a user wants. Those are the user's needs. What are they looking for in the experience? What do they hope to accomplish? What are their takeaways? And ultimately, what is their goal? On the other side of the coin, of course, is the product and a business that's driving that product's objectives. The product's objectives might be to sell something, to inform a user, to share pertinent information, to balance that with any latest discoveries or research and development that they have. But we need to go a little bit beyond what the specific product objectives are in the strategy plane. Let's expand our two-point system a little bit further and bring in business needs as well. To understand product objectives further, we need to get an understanding of the business itself. Where is it going? How is it growing? What are the next steps? If we can understand the business better, then the product objectives become easier to discern. Let's look at this in a little more detail. User needs can be equated to something that is desired. What does the audience want, need, or care about? Product objectives are what's feasible. What should the product do? Is it technically achievable? What's the cost? We need to assess how we can create a product that meets specific requirements, but also addresses the needs of the user. Ultimately, however, that product needs to contribute to the business's success. And the business needs to determine if that product is viable. Does it work for the team and the business? That becomes the strategy for your project. Practically speaking, if our business need is growth in the digital space, and our product objective is to bring more customers into the digital channel, those become cohesive. That, combined with understanding the user's needs, becomes a good starting point for our strategy. The strategy plane is defined as the foundation of a successful user experience and needs to be clearly articulated. We need to know both what we want the product to accomplish for our organization and how that maps itself to business objectives, and also what we want to accomplish for our users. That should inform the decisions we need to make about every aspect of the user experience. Let's look at specific objectives at a high level and start from there. Let's use Facebook as an example. To fully understand if a project is viable, it's best to start with understanding the company's mission. Facebook's mission is defined as this: to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. The components of that mission are empowering people, enabling community building, and connecting the world. If you fundamentally understand Facebook's business needs, all product objectives should map back to those needs. That will determine the feasibility of any project that you would perform for Facebook. As long as your product objectives can be mapped to either empowering people, enable community building, or connecting the world, then you should be aligned in your strategic objectives. So let's continue with Facebook as an example and consider our stakeholders. When we assess product objectives, we need to think about our business owner. When we define the strategy for these business owners, we need to ask a lot of questions. I can't stress this one enough. Asking stakeholders questions is going to be your most valuable tool in determining the strategy for owners. I've had tremendous success just asking the right questions of the right people to understand the why, the how, the what of a project. Some examples of questions are, what do you want to get out of the product? Or what are the business objectives that relate to this product? Sometimes you'll ask about brand identity, brand voice, whether the brand guide is up to date. You will absolutely need to ask a question about success, how to define it, and what your key performance indicators are. But there are so many different ways of learning about organizations. Of course, my favorite and the one that I highly recommend is talking to the right stakeholders and asking the right questions. But you can learn about organizations in many different ways. Most companies will have their corporate strategy documented somewhere. All you have to do is ask. And if they're public facing, that strategy will likely be documented on their own website, through social channels, or shared in annual reports or quarterly reports of the business. Similarly to one-on-one stakeholder interviews, group meetings and discussions are also great ways to learn about organizations. It also forces multiple stakeholders from different lines of business to challenge each other in these meetings on what the absolute objectives are of your project. Stakeholder interviews we've already discussed. I also enjoy workshops. Workshops are also a great way to learn about a business. The difference between a workshop and a stakeholder interview in a meeting is really about content and length of time. I find that a meeting might be an hour in length and involve a number of stakeholders, whereas stakeholder interviews would be a little less time than that, but be a little more focused to one or two stakeholders at a time. A workshop, in comparison, is usually about a half a day and will involve multiple activities, including multiple stakeholders. If you can take the time to book this type of activity at the beginning of your project, you'll be well on your way to success. There are many sources of operational data about an organization, whether it be previous sales, customer records, or any sort of specific interaction with their users. It used to be so uncommon for businesses to have information about their users. But don't be surprised if businesses have fairly robust views of who their user is. If they have that type of operational data, it will save you a lot of time and them a lot of money. Now let's turn to understanding our users. When we define the strategy for users, we really need to understand who they are. What do we know about them? How can we get in contact with them? What can they tell us about their own needs and motivations? Firstly, we need to break users into groups by some sort of type. Now, these types can be based on any number of factors. And what do we need to know about them? How they behave, what they would expect, and what they want are good places to start. Also, what they know or don't know. If we were to map user types based on areas of understanding, we would be able to cater to someone who has little understanding of a topic and advanced understanding of a topic. What they know or don't know, what they want or don't want, are different if you have extreme knowledge of a subject versus little knowledge of a subject. In the next module, we're going to discuss how we take this understanding of our users to the next level and create what's called a user persona. We'll see you in the next video.